Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Answering Legal's 2023 Law Firm Summer Reboot Camp. I am still Nick Werker. You're still stuck with me, unfortunately for you, or fortunately if you care for me in that manner. Um, we're moving along on our final panel here of Legal Tech Day. This one will be focused on using legal technology to improve the client experience. And rather than me introduce you, you guys want to just go down the line? Kaya, we'll start with you and introduce yourselves and where you're from, what you do, everything.
Great. Sure. Thanks, Nick. My name's Keao Caindec. I'm the CEO of Clarra. Clarra is a case management software company, cloud-based, and we focus primarily on litigation firms. So we found that a lot of the platforms out there tend to focus more on transactional firms, tracking things like time and monthly billing. And the workflows for a contingency-based plaintiff's firm, for example, are very different. So we've built our platform to serve primarily those types of firms. And I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area.
My name is Patrice Asimakis. I'm the Director of Legal Services for LawCompany. I'm a Michigan lawyer with 33 years of experience. My background includes a federal judicial clerkship, practice in both litigation and corporate law. I've worked in big law. I've worked for a solo. I've been the Director of Legal Services at LawCompany since 2018, during which time I've helped my clients, all of whom are lawyers, with a variety of legal research and writing support.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. I am Dorna Moini. I practiced for many years. I am a former lawyer or still a lawyer because I'm still barred, but practiced for almost a decade, last at Sidley Austin. And then now I am the CEO and founder of a company called Gavel, where we are the automation infrastructure for your law firm. And the core of our platform is document automation, but we really do everything from the client intake process to the automation to collaboration and communication with clients to actually taking those tools that you create and packaging them and turning them into revenue generating legal products.
I am so excited to talk to you guys. I don't know any of you that well. The previous panels, I've known everybody who's been on it, so I know what they're going to say. And selfishly, I like to learn new things and not just talk to my friends. So my first question to all of you is: would it be fair to say that technological expectations of legal clients have gone way up over the years? You can just jump in.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. When you think of just the general adoption of SaaS technologies, right, at every company for managing talent, for managing CRM, supply chains, software development, everything, all of the major parts of a business. People are used to using those types of applications. So as individuals or as businesses, I think clients kind of expect their vendors, their partners to also be adopting kind of more advanced technologies in their own business. And that, similar to law firms.
So I guess I would just agree with that. I think that it's a combination of competition within the legal industry, trans increased transparency within the legal industry, and also the level of collaboration that clients are now expecting from their lawyers that are leading to law firms, lawyers adopting more technology that is really benefiting both sides of the relationship. Both the attorney has a more streamlined interaction with their clients, and the client is more satisfied with that relationship.
Yeah, I would agree with both of you. I think that we all agree lawyers have been very late to tech. If you look at other industries like medical or engineering, even the accountants were ahead of the curve. And lawyers have been, slow adopters. Sure, there were some early adopters, back years ago, but I think overall we've been a little slower to tech. But COVID really accelerated that. And just the boom that's happened in the last few years, there's been a lot of money invested into SaaS vendors. And I think clients are now expecting things like security, responsiveness and efficiency, communication. They want to see a client portal. There are things that they're learning are just, they should be standard.
I used to think it was so funny because I got into marketing And for me, like everything that I bought professionally always had a portal, always had an onboarding team or a support team that I could talk to. But in my daily life, you could always tell when a business was using like a CRM platform or a customer, like an intake platform. And I always was very impressed. And one of the stories that I go back to is I got a dog like right before COVID, and I got all these bugs, and the ticks are biting him. I actually have to do this again because I've been neglecting it, and he's getting all these ticks, and I keep pulling the ticks off him. But I hired a one of those organic pest control companies to come by and spray my lawn with all the stuff to get rid of all the ticks and all the crap, fleas and all that, because dogs. And oh my God, the appointment scheduling. I had an app. It would notify me when the guy was going to show up. If he was late, it would send me his picture so that nobody could impersonate him. And like, oh, send back the instructions on your specific. If you want a certain place cleaned up, like right back shed, and he'll go clean up the back. It was incredible. And then after that, I would get a review request. And I remember thinking, if lawyers would just adopt this type of workflow in their practice, I think it would just alleviate a lot of the need for constant communication or phone calls or scheduling or like all of the time we really waste on like emailing back and forth, like 10 emails to set an appointment. So I want to ask you all, what are some of the most important technological updates that law firms should make in order to keep their clients happy, but also really meet the clients where they want to be met?
I love this question. I'd love to take it first. We work with lawyers all over the country. Unlike Dorna and Keao, who are very much tech vendors, we're not. We're a service company. So we're tech agnostic. We have relationships with just dozens and dozens of tech vendors, like my two co-guests today. But we approach this sort of like going to the doctor with an ailment. It's great if you leave with a prescription or a treatment plan, but it's not so great if you were misdiagnosed. So we delve very deep into our clients' pain points and understand exactly what their problems might be. They don't know what they don't know, and tech can only solve the problem if the problem's been clearly identified. So your question is, what makes them happy? Well, what makes them happy is winning or getting their desired result and having a low bill. That's what they want. They want their result and they don't want to pay too much. So this can be effectuated through efficiency. Efficiency looks different if you're a litigator. It looks different if you're a transactional lawyer. It looks different if you're practicing bankruptcy. I mean, I think that clients who heavily rely on contracts are going to want an automation tool like Gavel. They're going to want something that they're going to be able to make their contracts more efficient. Or if they have a large number of contracts, you're going to want to look at a CLM. If you're a bankruptcy lawyer, you're going to be looking at something like Next Chapter or Stretto. If you're a litigator, of course, case management, right? Like Cal, you're going to want to have the case management kind of tool. Also for litigation, you're going to want to look at analytics platforms like Trellix and Lex Machina. Transactional lawyer, closing, digital closing rooms and online data rooms. So I think what makes them happy is efficiency. And that's not one size fits all.
Yeah, I would say very similarly, it also depends on the size of the firm. A small law firm, a solo or very small law firm, I mean, some of them, they're just trying to run a small business, right? Get it off the ground, and finding clients is their biggest priority, and handling the cases. They're just trying to get basic infrastructure in place. And a lot of that might be around client acquisition or intake and some first steps toward efficiency. So as you grow into a mid-sized firm, you're going to run into other issues, maybe expanding into other practices. And larger firms are going to care about things like even managing talent and growing their leadership. So it all kind of depends on the type of firm and also the size.
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of what Patrice and Cal said just now. I think that one of the things, without prescribing a very specific part of the tool that you need, I would say that firms should really assess how they're communicating with their clients and how they're gathering data from their clients. And that may be different, like like both of my co-panelists just said, that may be different depending on the size of your firm, the practice area that you're in. But if you're thinking about that first, and it's very much a client first way to approach it, and it will guide you towards what the best relationship is for you. So maybe that ends up being some form of in-person intake. Maybe that ends up being some form of like Slack communication channel. Maybe that means you automate your client intake. There are so many different paths that you can take, but it really depends on the type of customer, the type of client persona that you have and what their preferences are.
I want to ask this next because I think up until probably 4 or 5 months ago, one of the hottest topics that I had with other panelists, with talking to people in the legal profession on podcasts, and even talking to my customers, the hottest topic was automation. And how do I make these workflows just work perpetually for me? But there's one thing on everybody's mind right now, and you're not able to not talk about it, is AI. And I want to because I don't really see for myself how I'm going to be able to use AI to help my customers yet. I'm more so use AI for like marketing and emailing and like maybe some research on certain topics. But how do you guys envision AI like affecting the client experience as a law firm owner?
Yeah, maybe I can take this one first because it's very close to a lot of stuff that we're working on internally as well, and something that our customers are bringing to us often. So I think that there are huge impacts for AI in the legal field and beyond. I think, like you're saying, right now there's not really a direct way to take AI and have it do all of your legal work, nor is this something that many of us probably want. What the way that I like to think about the impact of AI within the law firm space is to treat it almost a little bit like a really, really junior intern. And not even a law school intern, but like an intern who just came out of college and they know nothing about the law, where you can use it as the base of asking some questions, maybe having it guide you in the right direction, but you still need to put in all of the work and take it from there. Within our platform, obviously, Gavel is an automation platform. Our focus and core is really document automation. One of the ways that we've been thinking, like, is this something that we should even be thinking about? We've been thinking about this for a few years now. Like, how do we use AI in a way that's actually beneficial to our customers? We don't think about it as something that is going to do your work for you or draft work product for you, but rather we think of it as how can we have AI help you set up your automation? So you already know from years of practicing that these are the templates that you have, or these are the questions that you typically ask your clients. But what you need, and what's the big kind of hurdle for you to get onto something like Gavel or any kind of automation tool or any kind of software, is you need to do the setup. And so that's where we feel like AI is going to have a big impact, is really going back to what you, Nick, were finding to be a hot topic a few months ago. How do you actually set up that automation in a way that's scalable for your firm?
I would say we're so early in the timeline of AI, right? This is like when the internet just came out type of thing. And I feel like we're seeing some of the early use cases, but AI will eventually just be built into everything, right? So some tools that we tend to use today, whether it's a Grammarly or some of the tools built into Copilot with Microsoft now, those will just get better and better, but across the board, everything that we're doing. So, whether it's software development for your company, like one of our companies on the call, or like Gavel or Clarra, or every aspect of your business or of a law firm's business, you really need to think about how might AI actually help in all aspects of my business. So I think it'll be far-reaching, and ultimately, clients will affect or expect just greater efficiency. It's going to have a downward pricing pressure on billing and billing rates for certain types of work. So clients are going to expect that, and they're going to, I think, expect just faster access to information or insights, whether it's in the form of reports or reporting or analysis or those sorts of things. But it's anyone's guess now because we're in the very early innings.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I do think it's early. We've seen AI in due diligence, contract analysis, e-discovery. We've seen it. We use it a lot. As I mentioned, we have a variety of different vendors we have relationships with, and we use AI on behalf of our clients. But if we're talking about the client experience, I do think that there's a chance that the self-service platforms will be enhanced, the rocket lawyer types. So we might see a shift from clients away from using lawyers. I mean, I don't really want to see that happen, but I could kind of see a wave of that. If we're talking about something like OpenAI and ChatGPT, there is a global firm out of London called Allen and Overy that has built a legal specific AI tool using the latest iteration of OpenAI's ChatGPT. It's called Harvey. And 3,500 lawyers asked it 40,000 queries, so that now it has its own database to generate insights, recommendations, predictions on a large volume of legal data, which is enabling its lawyers to deliver faster, smarter, cheaper. And I think that's what we all are talking about here with Dorna, what you were saying about AI just being like a tool and like an assist to the human. What we like to say is legal intelligence equals artificial intelligence plus human intelligence. We're not to the point, lawyers aren't losing their jobs. I mean, not yet. We need people. I use AI all the time. There are things that it does really, really well. It doesn't ever have fatigue. It's 6 p.m. I'm working on a rush. I'm human. I might miss a term. AI is never going to miss stuff like that. I mean, there's some things that it's very, very good for, and there's some things that it needs a human for. So, the blend of humans plus the AI, it's a wonderful thing. But I do agree with you, Keao, that we're still in our infancy here.
When you said Harvey, the only thing I could think about is, are we
the rabbit?
Oh no, I'm rewatching Suits. Is everybody rewatching Suits now that it's out on Netflix? Am I the only one? As if I don't get enough of this during the day.
It's great. Yeah.
For anyone joining us late, we're currently hosting a discussion on using legal technology to improve the client experience. I'm joined by Dorna Moini, Keao Caindec, and Patrice Asimakis. So this one's specifically for Dorna. Gavel's platform emphasizes automation and saving attorneys time. How can automating a firm's processes improve a client's experience with that firm?
Yeah, definitely. So this is a question we get very often. And it's also a question we get around the idea of automation and how that impacts that firm's clientele and how many clients they can serve. So one is, as we were talking about earlier, this is automation, not automation necessarily, but technology is an expectation for many customers in the legal field. They are seeing this in other industries, and they're expecting that you're going to interact with them in a way that's really easy and seamless for them. And so instead of having to give you the same pieces of information over and over again throughout the course of their lifetime with you or throughout the course of a particular matter, if you give them something that is easy to use inside of some form of tech portal, they get to start inputting their information there. And not only do they have a more streamlined experience with you, but they also have an experience that is less intensive, takes up less of your time and their time, and helps them ask you the important questions that can move their case ahead to potentially success or whatever success looks like in that particular matter. So I think that firm clients now are really looking for firms who are innovative. And innovation oftentimes means that you're using pretty simple, out-of-the-box technologies to streamline their experience. And then another thing that we see a lot at Gavel, which is sort of a step further than client intake and automation, is this concept of building legal products. So building tools that you can actually charge for on an individual basis and unbundling the client experience. So for example, maybe you are an employment attorney, you provide lots of advice and counsel to your clients, but some of the work that you're giving them is repetitive. Maybe they're asking you for offer letters over and over again. What we're seeing some of our customers do is they save the conversations and for the important stuff that matters, or the parts that are going to lead to potential risky situations. But for areas of law that are more simple, they give their clients pieces inside of the client portals that they build that have automated documents. So the client can actually start generating an offer letter for every single person they hire, instead of having to reach out to you every single time and have that lengthier back and forth. So efficiency and accuracy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love that. All right, I have one specifically for you, Keao. Transparency and communication are frequent complaints about the legal process. I think if we were to right now type in a random law firm's name onto Google and read, like if you sort by negative Google reviews, it's never, oh, they screwed up, they did blah, blah, they got me the wrong result. It's always transparency and communication. How is this going to work? Whether or not they pick up the phone or call the client back. And that is such a big part of Clarra's portfolio. So
Sure.
how can
Yeah.
software help firms be more transparent to their clients?
I mean, we talked about it before. The client portal is a big thing, right? And just in terms of not only that you can communicate with the client, but also how you communicate with them. And they just want more and more of that an easy touch, whether it's through a mobile app or the web or just more integrated. But transparency can mean a lot of different things. So in some cases, transparency means that I shouldn't have to get in touch with my lead attorney to do something that an associate or a paralegal should do, and they should all have transparency across my matter, right? In other cases, they want to get information to certain types of information. So for large complex cases, those may be things like, how are we doing on just what are the results for the top, 10 or 20 milestones for the case? How are we doing there? How are we doing on the settlement outlook? How are we doing on just the overall case in general? And oftentimes that transparency that or lack of transparency that frustrates the client has to do with the law firm just not really having easy access to all of that information. It takes them a while to put it together. So with Clarra, we think a lot about what does that law firm really need access to? How can they get quick access to it and then deliver that back to the client? And that both efficiency as well as responsiveness and the ability to have that information delivered by someone who is, who has a lower hourly billing rate, frankly, clients appreciate that faster response, and I don't need to go to my lead attorney all the time. So we try to build that in, and we try to make it as simple as possible. I think that's the other piece of this, and all the technology is. It's just got to be as simple as possible for everyone to use.
Imagine using common sense.
Common sense, right?
So
Exactly.
this one is obviously, last but not least, for you, Patrice. I think, and this is not a crazy, outlandish statement, but lawyers are obviously expected to do a ton of researching and writing for clients. And for attorneys with not a lot of staff, this can be like pretty close to impossible a standard to meet. So how does LawCompany assist attorneys with managing that workload and ultimately allow them to better serve their clients?
Yeah, Nick, for sure. Small firms, solos, firms that have a lot of ebbs and flows in their work, they have trouble, and those are the ones who come to us. For almost 20 years, over 15 years, we've been supporting lawyers all over the country We have a really good, solid understanding of the difficulties law firms face, such as the one just mentioned. Especially in these times, it's economically difficult for a lot of people where cost saving is a priority. We found that it is much more cost effective to outsource those routine tasks to free up the lawyer to do the higher value tasks. Most of our clients are small firms, and we perform any type of legal research and writing. I mean, things that, we all learned first semester law school, legal research memo, brief, appellate brief, any kind of pleadings, demand letters. We can do all of that. We can do admin as well, but we also try to think very innovatively. I mean, innovation is sort of the core of what we've always been. And so any bespoke services that come our way, we just latch right onto that. A couple of years ago, I had a client, and he came to me as a bankruptcy practitioner, and then he decided he was going to give up bankruptcy. And so we didn't do any bankruptcy work for him. And about 2 months later, he called me out of the blue. I had only talked to him once, and he was not a client. And a couple of months later, he called me and he said, "Hey, I don't do bankruptcy work anymore, but I'm going to start acting as a receiver. Have you guys ever done any receivership?" And I said, I don't think so. I've been here since 2018. I don't really think that's like one of our core specialties, but let me hook you up. Well, we worked with him over the course of about maybe a month, 5 weeks, and we developed a receivership service for him. 6 months later, he made so much money that he retired and bought a horse farm. So, we are always thinking of what can we do to be innovative. I mean, yes, it's legal research and writing. Sure. Lawyers need help with that, but sometimes they need something different. And we've got a huge team of lawyers, all over. I mean, they're offshore, they're all over the United States. And so we always try to be open-minded. And if something comes our way, it doesn't have to be just legal research and writing. But yes, those are our core services. Yes, we can handle any kind of legal research and writing, but we are always open to new services. We just rolled out a new service that is a 24-hour query answering. So unlike a traditional legal research memo, which in our company takes 3 days, and you get the typical IRAC, kind of law school format in a research memo, we are rolling out a new service because some lawyers they just need a quick answer. They don't need the analysis. They're just like, if I just knew the law on this, I'd know how to pivot. So they just have a question. Just in my jurisdiction, what is X? And we do the research and we give it to them in 24 hours. So we're always trying to think of, what are they really looking for? We also vet all of our lawyers. So unlike the Upwork model, they don't have to find somebody that they trust and work with them over time. So yeah, we're always trying to think of, what can we do to take that overwhelming feeling from these small lawyers, because they make up the majority of lawyers in the country.
So question for all of you. What are some of the most frustrating mistakes that you see law firms make with the way that they manage and interact with their clients? And how would you sort of I want to use your term, how would you make them pivot and do it the correct way?
We're not talking about ethics. I assume we're going to stick with technology. So of course, there are ethical pitfalls. I think not being transparent about fees and not documenting the scope of the representation, and as Keao was saying, that lack of communication, I think those are the pitfalls. Mm-hmm. Communication probably being one.
Yeah. I also, we see a lot of firms, smaller ones especially, kind of make short-term decisions, right? The vast majority of law firms are small, but also very small. Only 3.5% to 5% of firms are able to grow beyond 20 employees, and about 2% grow beyond 50. So many of them hit this ceiling because they've got, say, 10 attorneys and now 30 staff, and they just can't grow because it's so, so chaotic. And they oftentimes make decisions that limit them to kind of being that size firm or stuck in what they're doing. Maybe they're just doing PI and they just want a PI tool for what they're doing now. So I think one of the things is just trying to look out further and making the right technology decisions for your firm in 5 or 10 years and making those decisions now.
I completely agree with those. I would also say training is something that is really important within the firm.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Actually, both communication, which both you both mentioned, but that's more external, but also communication within the firm of like, hey, staff, other attorneys in my firm, paralegals, how do you actually use this tool? If you spend just like 5, 10, an hour of time teaching them the tool, that can have exponential impacts on how they use it going forward.
Yeah, I love when I talk to people about, and this happens to me too, is someone will ask me a question like, oh, when should somebody or how should they use your platform, right? Like, say somebody wants to get an answering service, how should they use an answering service? And my answer is, well, like, you should figure out who's answering the phone and when, and set up like a standard operating procedure for how your phone is going to be answered and who's going to be answering it, where it's ringing, and setting up those workflows for people and training them on how you want them to use the tool, how the clients expect you to use the tool, how we're going to explain this process to the client. To me, is one of the most like, people think like, oh, they work here, they're gonna figure it out, and they're gonna explain. And it's, you don't want to have, say you have 3 support staff, right? And each one of those support staff handles a client differently. And maybe all 3 of them talk to this client and they're all giving this one person different information. It's like, what am I going to expect here? I'm so confused. I'm just going to keep calling until I get one solid answer from somebody. Um, and it's frustrating for people. I want to ask this because I think law firms don't know how to necessarily like roll out client experience changes. So do you think that law firms are prioritizing the wrong things, or like, is it a mindset? How do we go about adopting these necessary changes for the client experience?
I During the pandemic, when you would go out to dinner, it was obvious which restaurants were really hustling and which weren't. And the restaurants that didn't really hustle, that weren't really out fighting for your business, many of them went out of business. They just didn't go that extra mile to get extra business or diversify the way they were um, finding customers, doing delivery. And I feel like today, law firms, with the economy, we've got inflation, the M&A market is down, the venture debt industry has collapsed. There's a lot of pressure on law firms, and many of them are going to need to hustle. And that means figuring out how to go out and acquire more clients, serve the clients a lot better. So I do think things that we've talked about, engagement, communication, efficiency, are all there. But I think it's really important right now because the firms that aren't thinking about that, they're going to lose clients for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it does really come down to a lot of what we've talked about today. I would say starting with understanding the client needs before you're actually implementing any kind of technology to make sure that that is actually what they need. I think a lot of times there is, I mean, AI is an example of that. Like it's a flashy term. You're hearing about a lot of other people talking about it, potentially using it. And so a lot of people jump to the conclusion that they should be using it just because they've heard the word so many times. But really, it's important to even do potentially client surveys or feedback sessions to understand whether that's actually true for your clients and what their priorities are and what their perception of value is. Um, Two, I would say would be to like evaluate your own services and understand which parts of your business, if you're a firm with multiple practice areas or if you're a firm with one practice areas, like which part of your business is most conducive to needing technology and what type of technology. And then I also oftentimes will, for people who come in to the door for us, especially when they have a larger firm with multiple practice areas, I recommend doing some form of pilot program with a particular area that you think it could have the biggest impact for, seeing how that works, and then rolling it out to more areas after that.
Yeah, Nick, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that the shift in priorities might have something to do with changing the historical business model. And what I mean by that is the billable hour's been around forever and ever. And the problem with the billable hour is that efficiencies are penalized. The more time you spend, the more money. Why should I be more efficient? Just keep billing hours. I mean, there are legal bill review services that audit legal bills. I mean, when I was in my day, I came up in 1990. There were no services like that. You sent your client a bill, they paid it. Now they have auditing services. So these clients are looking for a different kind of a metric. We have an hourly model that we don't use very often, but really the bulk of our work is a fixed fee. You pay X, you get Y. Done. It helps you plan, it helps you budget. But as long as we stick to the billable hour, I submit to you all that the interests of the lawyer and the interests of the client aren't 100% aligned because you're kind of cutting out the efficiency there. I think more services should be outsourced. There's lots and lots of ways. Dorna was talking about unbundling. There's lots and lots of ways, whether it's your HR, your receptionist, your marketing, hit 'em thing, that you can outsource, and you can use virtual help now. So I think that the shift, we all know tech is here. It's here to stay. We all know where that's going. But I think that there also has to be a shift in the pricing model.
That's really interesting. I think that would throw a lot of firms for a loop, but I could definitely see other firms starting with that model. I mean, we've seen the sort of healthcare in the same way, right? Instead of paying for traditional healthcare coverage, being able to just pay for concierge healthcare, right? And some people think that works better for them. So, and that's a completely different economic model.
It's going to have to come from the clients, though, right? I mean, lawyers aren't going to do this on their own.
I will say that this is a topic that's becoming really, so actually last week, coincidentally, I did a webinar on alternative business models. And we talked about every single type of business model that law firms are implementing right now. And it seems like it's a very hot topic right now. And I feel like not in the buzzy way of hot topic, but really something that a lot of firms are starting to look at and determine whether it's right for them. So I totally agree with that, Patrice.
I was just talking about that this morning when it pertained to like using AI to really help you cut down on the amount of time that it takes you to do tasks anyway. So the whole point of everything we're talking about, right? Like automation, AI, it's really decreasing the amount of time that we should be spending on things. And
I was going to say, with plaintiffs firms, it's a little bit different, right? Because caseload efficiency can be positive in certain ways. So these firms oftentimes get paid on contingency and then recover their fees and costs through settlement. So they're definitely more aligned with the client goals and economics. At the same time, they're not always, for certain matters, you may need to submit time. So they may be inflating that sometimes. They may be understating it sometimes. So I think what the efficiency comes down to for the plaintiffs' firms, or what they care about more, is efficiency from the perspective of generating new clients and new cases, right? New innovative cases. So being able to bring on more attorneys that can go and research a certain new area and develop and research and propose a case, find clients, and that turns into maybe a mass tort or a larger opportunity and case. Like, they want to be efficient because they want to drive more profitability and revenue for their firm. Some of them struggle with that because they're so inefficient that every time they bring on a new attorney, they've got to bring on a couple more staff, and they just can't deal with all of that, right? So I think efficiency is really positive for these plaintiffs' firms, especially as it relates to their ability to go after more business.
I do like that there's like, I always thought, until recently I met with a guy, Matthew Kurbis, the subscription attorney, and we went over like all of these alternative billing models where it's like outcome billing, right? Say you're in a criminal case and I don't know, it's a DUI, and if I can get you to avoid jail time, I get a certain fee. If I get you to a certain result, then I get a better fee, so on and so forth. There's a number of different ways that we can go about billing that I think are going to be much more important to the client experience in the future because you're right. Like, why would I want to be penalized for being more effective at my job? It doesn't really make that much sense. And especially, like I was going to say before, with ChatGPT, even I'm seeing this in my professional life is like, uh, the CEO of my company wants to release this new feature we have coming out. And I'm like, okay, give me a few days. I got to build out this section of the website and I got to figure out what terminology we're going to use and do some research. He's like, what do you mean a couple of days? Put it into Chat GPT. And like the time expectation has just gotten so much shorter. And I had to explain that obviously that's not how this is going to work because Chat GPT can't build you a new model of your business that you can't really articulate yet. Um, but I could see the case for, you submit, say you're a corporate law firm and you submit to one of your clients that it took you 8 hours on a certain thing. They'd be like, what are you talking about? This is just research. It should have taken you 2 hours tops. Why are you not using this sort of tool? And like, I'll pay X amount, but I'm not going to pay $500 an hour at 8 hours for you to give me something that should have taken you just this amount of time. So I think the client expectation is going to have that downward pressure on billing, but there's just ways to make sure that we're making enough money value based for each individual type of law.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
no, I agree. And I mean, what client hasn't had that conversation with their law firm, right? Getting a bill back for something and being like, "What? This took you 13 hours, really? Come on." So,
like I didn't go to law school. I could have done. I'm sure that
right.
everybody loves
Yeah,
to
and I
say
I
that.
think
mean,
then
but they,
you have real lives that are impacted. But if
right,
you're setting things up in a way that's clear to everyone up front, you ideally, hopefully, you're having 100% realization rate in those models.
right. There is the other side of that though, which is uh, companies select law firms oftentimes after really doing a lot of diligence and selecting a law firm that they really think is right for their firm or their matter, right? And they're willing to pay more because the outcome that they expect from that firm um, is uh, uh, is much higher. They have much more confidence in that law firm, so they're gonna give them more slack, I think, in their billing. But there's always that time when um, for some set of bills, the client comes back and says, "Hey, why does this take so many hours?"
I want to ask this because I think we're at a place where everybody's got a bunch of ideas, and law firms are definitely starting to adopt some of these things as it pertains to the client relationship. Because, I mean, I myself, I've seen it evolve a lot. Like, I always use the traffic ticket attorney example. Is it used to be like you call in to a traffic ticket lawyer's office, somebody sells you something, and they say, "Send me the ticket," and they don't really want to talk about price or just send me the ticket, we'll handle it. Um, that that workflow used to seem very efficient to me. I'd be like, wow, that's a great way to make money. But I can also see that a lot of people would be like, I'm not sending you the ticket until you tell me what's going on. I think buyers are just much more educated now. Um, but I do feel like we're at that precipice of like moving to like too many platforms. So I'm curious, where do you guys see the relationship between firms and clients heading in the next few years, and how might it be different than it is now?
So, a couple of things. We've been talking a lot about collaboration and more educated consumers, and I want to circle back to that. Um, I think when it comes to transactional lawyers, automation is absolutely where it's at. I mean, that's where this is heading. You don't need to sift through all your old forms and templates. You don't need to appear in person for closings. It's all going to be about automation. As far as the litigators go, they're settling early. They're building the costs of that settlement into their business. They're not, the clients are very litigation averse. Dockets have changed so much since I was a new lawyer. I only spent a couple years in litigation, but back in the day, you would go into a courtroom on a motion day and you would see every kind of case. They'd have codes, so you would know these are the PI, breach of contract, eminent domain, property, divorce, whatever. And you just see all the different types of cases. And today, they're all insurance. They're all like, they're auto insurance. They're just not the variety of cases. And I think, the automation and compliance teams are making sure that these lawsuits don't actually get to a courtroom. They're making sure that these things are settled. So I think that relationship's changed in that more lawsuits are going away. That said, for the other kind of work that you really do need to get to a court, or you really do need a lawyer to get to a closing, I think the collaborative process is going to explode for a couple of reasons. One, we have all the transparency now, and clients are more involved. They are more educated consumers. But historically, they didn't have the same access to law. You couldn't Google a question in the 1980s or 90s. We didn't have ChatGPT to tell you what the outcome's going to be. We just didn't have these sources. So yes, of course, there were sophisticated corporate clients. There were even back in the day. But now anybody can be an internet lawyer. You just ask a few questions and going in, and you're telling your lawyer, hey, this is what I think you should do. So I think lawyers are really going to have to manage expectations and know that the process is going to be more collaborative.
I completely agree with everything Patrice has said. I also want to add that I think that there is a lot of, going back to your example, Nick, of like how much information do you want to provide to the client up front? I think that clients want to be felt like you are an authority and that you can take their case and handle it for them, but they also want to feel empowered and feel like they're part of the process. And so it's important to hold their hand, make them feel like you can take it to the finish line and have confidence in you, but also to educate them at every stage of the way. And that's where I think technology can have a really big impact as well, because you can embed that type of relationship and those types of communications that maybe are pretty routine and happen with every single client over and over again. You can create processes for those that make it such that it's as easy for you as being the traffic attorney who says, just send me the case and I'll handle it. Because you can send them a longer response that really explains to them what you intend on doing with that information. But that also makes the client feel like they are embedded in the process and that you're building that trust with them from the beginning of the relationship.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, they want to be part of the process. And a lot of that also has to do with access to information, like we've been talking about, where they just want to know where things are and they don't want to have to struggle to find that out, right? So providing that access to information, making it easy for them, and letting them know where things stand shows them that you have a plan and that you're collaborative. So I think that relationship is going to change. And I also think that, increasingly, all of these different platforms of how we communicate and automate, they expect those to work together and for them to work together with their systems as well. So we're just going to continue to see more and more automation and integration with systems. And I know that, that gets much more technical, but I think a lot of that for more sophisticated clients, they want to see that. They want it to be a lot easier to have information and to put it into systems that they use.
Very easy follow-up question here. For anybody who has watched this panel and they want to follow your work and connect with your company further, where do you recommend they go? Patrice, I'm starting with you.
Sure. LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn or LawCompany.com.
Easy.
Yeah.
Dorna?
Yeah.
Same. I guess I would say I'm on LinkedIn, and if you want to learn more about Gavel, gavel.io.
Keao?
Yeah, for us, just visit our website, Clarra.com, Clarra.com.
For anybody who watches this in like a post facto YouTube, Spotify, wherever I end up putting this, the links to everything will be in the description, and follow-up emails for everybody who registered and is here. We'll include links to everything that we just mentioned. But that's all the time that we have for this discussion. I would like to thank Dorna, Keao, and Patrice so much for joining me today.